Greetings and welcome to this Sunday's lesson all about making flower essences. My name is Emily Ruff and I'm director of the Florida School of Holistic Living, and I'm truly delighted to share with you how simple it is to make one of my favorite medicinal preparations using plants. Many of you are familiar with Bach flower essences or rescue remedy, and this is the same simple procedure that we use to prepare flower essences. Today we'll be talking about how to make the mother essence, and later on I'll share with you how to dilute those into stock bottles and to dosage bottles. But first of all, let's talk about flower essences. These are diluted, simple, energetic preparations of the plant that are used for emotional well-being. A lot of herbal medicines like tinctures and teas involve the biochemicals of the plant and how those interact with our body. But with flower essences, we're really simply focused on the energetic properties and the spiritual essence of the plant and how it can assist our emotional well-being. So let's get started. The first step to making flower essences is to decide which flower you'll be using in your garden, and then to sit and meditate or pray or just allow yourself to connect with the plant. I feel like this is a really important step in the process because it lets us build a relationship with the plant. It allows us to offer our respect. And we can quiet our minds enough to be in tune with the garden and to really acknowledge that this is a living, breathing being. I like to sit and ask permission, say a prayer, give thanks and gratitude, and allow myself to become clear as a vessel so that the medicine that I'm preparing is free of any stress, tension, or mind chatter that might be carried with me throughout the day. There are a few simple ingredients to make flower essences, and one of those is a clear container. It can be glass or it could be crystal. I like to use clear rather than blue glass or green glass, just acknowledging that all sorts of energetic influences can give their impression into the water molecules. And if I use clear, then it allows me to make sure that it's really just the subtle, nuanced imprint of the flower with no other influence. So first, we have our container, and second, we have water. I'm very blessed to live in a place where I have clean, pure spring water. When I am residing in the city, I will use a Berkey or another type of filtration device to filter my water, but just any type of water is fine. I don't go to great lengths to get some sort of fancy bottled water because, frankly, if it's coming in a plastic container, then it's going to have some of those polymers in it, and I don't consider that quite as pure. So if you're just using tap water and you live in a city where there's chlorine in your water, perhaps consider letting that water sit out on the counter for several hours or even overnight so that some of that chlorine can evaporate. Otherwise, try to use some nice, fresh, pure spring water. So there's our first two ingredients: a vessel like a crystal bowl or a glass bowl, and your water. I'll note that sometimes flower essences, I might be making them when I travel. So I use mason jars. I've used old jelly jars. As long as it's very clean, I like to sanitize them, boil them in some water perhaps. But any size container can be fine. It doesn't have to be some large, fancy crystal bowl. So once I've got my water and my vessel, now I'm going to be collecting flowers from the plant that I meditated with earlier. And today's flower essence, we're going to be making out of the flower Bleeding Heart. Now, Dr. Edward Bach, who originated what we know of today as flower essences, although of course many traditions have used the energetic medicine of flowers for centuries, if not millennia, but Dr. Bach was very careful to not let his hands or his fingers touch the flowers. He wouldn't go collect the flowers and then place them by hand in a bowl of water. Some companies even go to great lengths and bend over branches of the bush so that the flower touches the water and is never even harvested. But in my practice, I do harvest the flowers mindfully and respectfully, but I try not to let my hands themselves actually touch the flowers. So you'll notice in the video here that I try to hold my bowl of water underneath the flowers, and then I use my scissors or my gardening snips and shears to just cut those flowers off and let them land in the bowl so the bowl collects them. So I don't ever have to actually touch them with my fingers. And I'm going to be collecting flowers until the flowers cover the surface of the water. So for this reason, you might be discerning in the size of the vessel or the container that you use. If you have large flowers, you might use a big bowl. But if you have teeny tiny flowers like peppermint flowers or spearmint or forget-me-nots, or if you have a rare plant that you only want to use one of the flowers at a time, then what you might consider in that instance is using a smaller jar, a smaller bowl. Like a friend jokes that you could even use a thimble, and that's absolutely true. So consider when you're picking your container the size and the amount of flowers that you have. If you only have a few flowers and you want to cover the surface of the water, then you don't want to use a huge bowl. You want to use a smaller bowl. So we're going to carefully cut these flowers and trim them, allow them to be collected in the water. We try not to touch them with our fingers, and we want them to cover the surface of the water. And once that is established and those flowers have covered the top of the surface of the water, then you want to leave your bowl with the flowers in the water in a sunny place for at least 3 hours, sometimes a little longer. I leave mine uncovered, although I do know herbalists that sometimes will put a light mesh or a screen over the top so that no leaves or bugs or pollen gets in. That's fine, but I don't do that. I just let mine stay out in the open. I let it stay in a sunny spot for about 3 hours. Well, what if it's a rainy day? Well, that's okay. I try to leave it a little longer, or pull it out of the rain. Of course, that rain just adds its own unique medicine to your flower essence. But ideally, in every ideal circumstance, you're going to be leaving that in a sunny location for at least 3 hours. I've left mine for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 hours before. I've also made different preparations in the moonlight rather than sunlight. But to truly make a proper flower essence, you want to leave those flowers in a sunny spot for at least 3 hours. After that time has lapsed, you can collect your bowl, and you'll then want a few other ingredients. You'll want to have a strainer. You'll want to have a measuring cup is ideal. You'll want to have a glass container to store the final product in. And then you're going to want a alcohol or a glycerin of some kind to preserve your flower essence. So today I have chosen a pure grain alcohol to use for my flower essence. So now that we've had our essence infusing in sunlight for several hours, we're going to strain the flowers out of the water. And I like to strain into a measuring cup so I can see exactly how much water I have. Now, again, in this process, I'm going to try to keep my grubby fingers out of the essence and out of the water. Try not to touch that water. Those flowers, after you've strained them, those could be given to your garden as an altar, an offering. We've really infused most of the medicine out of them. If it's a flower that you're used to working with as a tea, like a chamomile or a rose petal or a lavender, you're welcome to turn it into a tea before you give it back to the garden or compost it. But please never just throw those in the trash. You always want to make sure that you've given those back to the earth in some respectful, honoring way. So now that we've strained the water out, what I'm interested now in doing is seeing how much water I have infused. For my final product, I'm looking to have about 50% water that I've infused, and 50% alcohol to preserve it. So in this particular essence with the bleeding heart, I've got about 8 ounces of infused water, and I'm going to add to that 8 ounces of this pure grain alcohol. The final product that I end with is called a mother essence. And we have a few more steps to create the final flower essence, but we have now completed our mother essence. Now, in this step, please be sure to grab a marker and a label and label that jar or bottle that you're going to store the mother essence in. I can't tell you how many times I've been so blissed out in the garden that I've made a flower essence and I've forgotten to put a label on it. And unfortunately, when I've come back to it, I can't identify it. And it's the biggest shame to lose really good medicine. So be sure at this stage that you grab a marker and write a label on your essence. While you can use a mother essence for medicine, typically we will be diluting this mother essence into what's known as a stock bottle, which is the bottles that you often see at the health food store or the apothecary. To make a stock bottle, you'll take just two drops, not dropperfuls, but drops of your mother essence, and place those in a 1 ounce bottle filled with alcohol, vegetable glycerin, or some people prefer vinegar, though it has the shortest shelf life. That is the ingredients to prepare a stock bottle. Now, those bottles, much like you would purchase at the health food store, can be taken directly as dosage, but there is also one further step of dilution known as a dosage bottle, which occurs when we take 2 drops from the stock bottle and place those into a 1 ounce bottle of alcohol, glycerin, vinegar, or in the case of a dosage bottle, water can be used. Dosage bottles typically are used in a short period of time, and the water will not last very long. So if you use water, just know that you might want to keep it in the refrigerator or plan to use it in a very short period of time, something like a week. This concludes our introduction to making flower essences, but of course there is a lot more to share about different ways we can apply them, different medicines we can prepare with them, and so we hope you'll join us again. First of all, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear when we release new videos about flower essences and other herbal preparations. We also encourage you to sign up for our newsletter and learn more about all of our classes, including our 5-session Flower Essences for Emotional Health series, which is starting soon at our website, holisticlivingschool.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope to hear from you with questions, comments, and stories of flower essences that you make after watching today's video. Many blessings.